Hello, bonjour. Um, I don't know any other ones. How's it going, everybody? What is God? Who is God? Why is God? How is God? I bet people don't ask him that very much. This is a question I've had for a while. I think a lot of people have. Um, and I don't know the answer. And you don't know the answer. Nobody knows the answer. However, it's fun to think about and speculate. We all think we know the answer. We don't. I mean, and we won't know until we meet him. If God is a person. I have had a pretty unique experience with um, my subconscious. As somebody who used to have DID, which dissociative identity disorder, if you don't know, you probably do at this point, multiple personalities. I had to learn, or something that I learned through therapy is that these alters um, are all a result of my subconscious. And part of healing from that and getting my alters to integrate um, and become one person again, I had to confront my subconscious, and I had to be actively aware of it, and what it's doing, and how it was all just a defense mechanism, right? It's just your body and your brain coming up with whatever conceivable way it possibly can to help you function and get things done, or to cope with stressful, difficult situations. Now, because of that, I became very familiar with how the subconscious works and what its purpose is and its function. And there's a lot of philosophical debates out there about consciousness and um, like free will in regards to the subconscious and how much control we actually have over our choices and all that. But that's not what we're talking about today. How does this relate to God? I personally am atheistic and agnostic. So I don't believe there's a God. I'm open to the idea of there being one if there is one. I don't like to say that things are impossible because it's like impossible according to what? It's our own beliefs. Um, but when it comes to God, I've been looking at all these different cultures and religions and how they view God and what they believe God is. Some people believe God is nature, or in an extension, the universe. Some people believe that God is that they are God. That then the individual is God. And then some people believe that it's an actual physical or spiritual being, um, not much different from us in appearance and like a person. Now, however you choose to like, for some people they worship God, some people don't. For some people it's just, yeah, this is, God is the universe and we're all subject to the universe or nature. I think that's what I lean more closely towards personally, my own personal ideology. But I have come recently, in the past year and a half, as somebody who grew up very religious, it was always drilled into me that's like, when you feel this, right, these sensations that you feel mean it's the Holy Ghost, or mean that it is God talking to you. Which could be right. I don't know. But then when I or there would be things where it's like, oh, these are bad thoughts or whatever. It's like, this is the devil tempting you. Um, but then as I grew up, and after I had left the church and left religion and stopped believing in God and stuff, I noticed that I still had those things, right? And a lot of people argue it's like, oh, well, God is with you even if you don't believe in him. And I mean, it's technically a cop out, but it's also a fair argument, right? Like, sure. But I still felt those things, but it didn't feel like it was coming from an outside source. It felt like it was coming from me. And this is after all my parts had integrated, because I'd grown up more than half my life hearing other people's voices alongside my own voice. Having my brain was crowded. Um, so it was very difficult to distinguish um, when something was God or the devil or just one of my alters or just my own thoughts. Is very confusing and hard to navigate and um, figure out. But I came to learn that through learning the subconscious and my experience with religion and leaving religion, I've come to realize that I believe that God is your subconscious. And the reason I believe God is the subconscious is because he, or your subconscious will speak to you in whatever way works, right? So whatever way your subconscious knows will get your body to do what it needs to do to survive, to live, to take care of itself, it will do that. That is the avenue that it will take. For me, for the longest time, it was other personalities, literal physical manifestations of or not physical, but like they had bodies and faces. They looked different. I could see them in my mind. And that was how my brain communicated with me. And I've come to realize I think I feel like that is the case for everyone, right? And this is my personal belief, right? I've never met God, um, but the, those feelings that I get and the thoughts and all that, now that I'm more in contact with my subconscious. I mean, to as much as you can be, right? There's an amount of subconscious that you can't tap into, because it's running on autopilot all the time, 24/7. When I'm when I'm having like moral dilemmas and stuff in my head, it doesn't feel like it's coming from God or the Holy Ghost or Satan. It's just me. Like, it's just my own voice, and I know my own voice because I've had other voices, right? I know that distinction. And I realized, like, growing up, like, when you're told 24/7, like, this is what this feeling means, right? This means God. Like Mormons, it's pretty common when people are, feeling the spirit, for them to cry, right? Like, it's pretty common, like, expression of that spiritual feeling, and a burning in your bosom is kind of how they explain it. But then you have like the Quakers, which were called like the shaking Quakers, because they would shake, they would tremble. And I feel like when you tell people, like, oh yeah, these, this is what this means, and you ingrain that into them, and then it becomes ingrained in their subconscious because it doesn't know better, and you don't know better, right? As you're growing up, you're brand new to the world. You know nothing. So whatever is told to you is true. So if your body, while it's developing, is programmed to think a certain way, then naturally your subconscious is going to use that to communicate with you. Now, going back to like nature and stuff, I feel like you can, how do I say this? I think you could very easily make the argument that, nature is God, the universe is God. But I think God is just ultimately just a term that we give to whatever we view as the driving force of the universe, or the reason for living that we possess. I think that's what God is. And if that is a deity for you, right? If God being a person who you can talk to, you can pray to, you can believe in and hope in, that's great. Like if that gets you up in the morning, it gets you moving, that's awesome. That's awesome, and that's God to you. Right? That is God in your world, in your reality. That is God. And that might not be the case for other people. For me, it's my subconscious, or rather the concept. I guess I'd say God is more of a concept to me than like an actual thing. It's more of like the idea of purpose. And that works for me. For some people, it's the universe, or, like a lot of people believe very strongly in things like astrology, or things like that, and like the planets and celestial bodies having, a great influence on your life. And I think whatever it is that gets you going, that gets your body moving, that gets you taking care of yourself and being a good person, that's awesome. I think that's great. And I think you should live by that. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. Because ultimately, what are rules and laws of the universe but something that we observe? And that's it. We observe them. We don't actually know if these things hold true everywhere. We can only perceive a fraction of the universe around us, right? We can't even see all colors, or all light, I should say. So who knows? And it's not like anybody's died and then come back from the dead, like later, after having met God and all that stuff. And I know like people have like died temporarily and claimed they saw God or heaven or whatever. But then that goes into the afterlife. Is the afterlife the same for everyone? Or is it what you believe? Does your consciousness take itself to, or create whatever it believes is next? Who knows? Not you. Certainly not me. Not anybody else. We don't know. We can pretend to know. We can think we know. We can hope we know. But until you know, you don't know. You know? I think that just about wraps up everything I want to say. But I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. Let me know what God is for you, how that manifests for you, and if you agree with me. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know. Let me know. Love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.